Thank you for joining us for another episode of Hello APGD, a neighborhood podcast about the Audubon Park Garden District in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Michael Lothrop, and this is part 1 of 2 of my interview with Clyde Singleton, pro skateboarder, writer, director, podcaster, and chef. Check out Cookin' with Clyde pop-ups around Orlando, and also check out his podcast WCRP on Skateboarding on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your podcasts. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you'd like to be a sponsor, please feel free to message me on Instagram at HelloAPGDPod. Thank you for listening. This episode is brought to you in part by Trevor Brown of Fannie Hillman & Associates. For listings, market trends, helpful home buyer and seller tips, email directly to Trevor at fanniehillman.com or find him on Instagram at TrevorBrown407. Just a heads up, there's some language and subject matter that may not be suitable for all audiences, so please take care when listening. And with me today is Clyde Singleton, pro skateboarder, writer, director, podcaster, and chef. Clyde, welcome.
Thank you, sir. How
yeah,
are you?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm so stoked to have you on today. We met at Stardust, where you are now a chef, and you're doing Monday night pop-ups at Gabby's Market, which is super cool.
Thank you very much.
I love your podcast. I'd love to talk about that first. There's many things to talk about, obviously, but such a cool thing. So you started this just around 2 years ago.
The podcast. Yes. It was weird, man. First off, I want to say thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it, man.
Of course.
We've been trying to do this for a while. And
Indeed. Yeah.
It's podcasts are very funny. So.
Right. I know. They can happen whenever.
I see you every day.
Right. I know. Yeah. This was bound to happen.
Thank you for having me on. Man. I started the podcast. It's called WCRP on Skateboarding. I took a lot of hints off of just a lot of old things I was really into. Mm-hmm. I was really a big fan of Robert Townsend growing up, and I liked that he would produce everything that he did. I always thought that was really cool to see, Wayans Brothers and all that kind of shit, mm-hmm. Anyone that produces their own stuff. I've always been very intrigued with it. So yeah,
creative control and all that.
Creative control is, it's always, I've just really been into creative control. And so with that said, I've just always been a fan of WKRP, and I wanted to do something like an AM radio vibe. Mm-hmm. That's what I grew up on. I grew up on 70s AM, talk radio and soul and all that kind of stuff and all kinds of music. But I've always wanted to do something like that. And in my weird, crazy mind, I was like, you know what? I think it'd be cool if it sounded like a semi-radio. I just had all this stuff in my head, and so initially I was offered to do something about 3 years ago when I first quit drinking. That was obviously the pandemic, and everyone wanted to start a podcast.
Oh yeah,
everything.
Yeah.
So I was offered to do one, and they were like, "Yeah, you'd be great to do it."
Who's they? Who was offering that?
Alfonso Rawls is an ex-professional skateboarder, right. And he was the main guy really trying to get me to go at it. We would talk on the phone for hours. I would just constantly be like, "No, dude, I don't want to do it." He'd be like, "Man, you got a lot of following." And I was doing the history of Black skateboarding a lot. I started doing that about 10 years ago on IG, and then I mixed it up with Black history too. So they both just really took off during the pandemic because a lot of people had a lot of time to read and argue on the internet. Yeah. With that said,
especially if you were not drinking, then that's like a lot of time.
I was just kind of watching everything, and then everything I was already doing, I stepped it up a bit. I had more time to do it because I wasn't drinking, and I had a very
more
clear
energy.
I had a very clear head. So,
mm-hmm.
Writing and everything was just bam, bam, bam. It was easy to me almost.
Yeah.
So I was creating content absurdly. I was creating so much content just on the internet, on my page, mm-hmm. that my buddy's like, "Dude, you should start doing a podcast." And people would ask me here and there to go on, like the 9 Club, which was a skateboard podcast, things like that. And so I was like, why would I go on there why wouldn't I just start my own thing? and tell my own story.
Yeah.
So to answer
creative
your
control,
question,
right?
Yeah. So to answer your question, like, that's kind of what really drove me. I was just like, dude, like, I wanted to be like, my life's more interesting than that. Like, I'm really into history. I'm really into reading. I'm really into cooking. Like, we talk a lot. So you know things that I'm into. I'm really into old rock, and I'm into things people have no clue. So I would, people are like, you'd be perfect to do a podcast. And my main thing was, I was like, I don't want to be on camera. Since I was a kid, I've been on camera. Like, that's been my life. That's my entire life, is being on camera or being on video camera. And that's exhausting as hell, man. It's, and also what I noticed about podcasts that were on camera, number one, that's not a podcast, it's a TV show.
That's right.
Let's separate those two things.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? That's a television show that you can now let people hear. But it's like, dude, they were already doing that on like AM radio.
Exactly.
People were just like it's kind of talking to people that didn't know. Mm-hmm. So this is what's funny. Not only did I not want to be on camera, at the time my front teeth were like broken and just, I've been drinking a lot, so I was like, perfect to duck off of camera. I was like, I'm not getting on camera and covering my teeth anymore. And so I just put it together, man. I had actually, when I was first going in, this is a great story. When I was first going in my first show, great reminder to anyone that wants to start something, don't start it on some bullshit. Don't start it on some petty shit, because that's where you're going to stay in that pocket. I figured there's already someone doing that, but that's not interesting to me. So the first guy I was going to get was this guy, Ricky Oyola. And so he was good friends with an old teammate of mine. So long story short, we were in SF 1993. And it was the day Mark Gonzalez, I went skateboarding with him that day, holler. He kickflipped the Gons, which is unheard of. And I'm in the background, straight up, I am. And so after that, Ricky was trying another trick and he fell and he started yelling the N-word really loud.
Oh my God.
Mind you, this is San Francisco. Like San Francisco is like a United Colors of Benetton commercial. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's just the last place you want to yell anything racist, homophobic. That's just like, that's just where people started like, hey man, people are bad.
Since like the 60s, right?
Thank you. They've been trying to tell people for a long time, like, hey dude, it's really bad to do this kind of shit. It's like really bad to hate people. And so he gets in a fight with this other big skateboarder, Javante Turner. They all end up chasing him out. It looked like a scene out of Gladiators or something. And I'm just sitting there. Mind you, I know him. Yeah. And I'm from the East Coast, and this was just like, this was seconds after Mark Gonzalez kicked, like this, just this entire thing that happened. And I'm just a kid.
Everyone was feeling good, and then everyone was feeling real bad.
Everyone's, oh boy, here we go. So everyone starts chasing him out. They chase him out with skateboards, He goes back to Philadelphia. And this is funny because he got kicked out of the skateboarding industry. He went back to Philadelphia, started this whole East Coast style of skating, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. So I'm telling the story doing Black History Month, and I didn't even say his name. I'm just like, and I'm showing pictures of Javante, and I'm just talking about Javante. I'm like, yeah, and he also beat up one of your favorite pros. Didn't even say his name.
Sure.
This guy came.
Fun fact, right?
Mind you, I've not seen or spoken to this guy since probably 1993.
Yeah.
This guy comes screeching in my things, and I'm just like, I usually don't pay attention to comments, and so this dude just started go. At first, I'm kind of laughing at him. Then he's like he's like in my DMs, and I'm like, wow. I'm like, dude, like, I was like, if you come to Florida, we can box. And I was like, honestly, we can box. We give the money to anyone. I swear to God, I was like, so at this point, knew I was starting the podcast, and I wanted to start it with him. Because everyone
settle that score,
dude. And so I just knew, I was just like, dude, this is like, my foot is on the pulse of skateboarding right now. Like I started the page, the original page I did had like 10,000 people, not in 24 hours. Like everyone's waiting for this. I had his picture up. I had like some other evidence.
Yeah.
And so I was starting the podcast like this, right?
Yeah. And you were just a witness to this. And
I
you
was just a witness to all
you
this.
just mentioned it in passing, didn't even try to call him out.
Dude,
but he called himself out, right?
And he got super mad at me. And it's like seriously seeing like a Martin Luther King thing and someone's like, you didn't see that, I'll fight you. And that's pretty much what happened with that dude.
Yeah.
And so I was gonna start my first pod. I was like, hey man, come on the show, da-da-da. And so I did it publicly. I was just like, it was like a chess move. I was like, I'll box you and you can come. I was like, you can come on podcast. We can talk about this. And he never talked to me again, obviously. And then I ended up getting this guy, Ron Allen. And Ron Allen's like was first black professional skateboarders. He was one of the first street skaters to go pro. And then from there, man, I just started getting all these really awesome guests. It kind of snowballed. I just kind of remembered who I knew. I remember watching some skateboard podcasts, some and just being like, dude, these guys ask the worst questions.
Sure.
And so I had this whole think box of things that like I knew I didn't want to do and I didn't want to see. It was very important to me to not do things that annoy me.
Yeah.
And so and also if there's no camera, this is more of a genuine conversation. So that was my idea of doing the podcast is like after the first one, first episode, we did it on Zoom. And I wanted to use the audio. 3 hours, sat on some weird beach in Gloucester, my ex-girlfriend's house somewhere. Went out there, I was so happy about it. Got during the interview, it did not record.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
No.
Dude. Yeah, dude. So luckily he ran it back with me. And so that was, that was just my first learning thing, like just don't go into it aggro or like, don't be that guy, like it's just not worth it to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think, and I'm glad I did, just getting good, pure content and being able to just talk to people like a peer. That was so important to me. Because once you get these guys and they're relaxed and they're talking, they're going to talk. And they don't have an outlet to talk.
Yeah.
And they're watching all their friends on these TV shows, and so when it's like they're normal, they're right back in that pocket. And it's such an organic thing because it's a mutual respect for one another, which is very important, to be able to have respect for someone. You're like,
and that trust too,
and
right?
Trust, and it's like, because some of the stuff that people have talked to me about, it's pretty deep, man. It's but to me, it's very important to hear that kind of stuff, especially coming from these guys. Because a lot of people they're so caught up in their ego that they don't, that they forget what kind of, what built them, and they don't know who they are.
Well, and those are the really interesting stories too, right? It's like what brought you to skateboarding, but more than that kind of obsession with it. It's something that you love doing. It's something that it gives you that freedom. It puts you in that headspace. I'm super familiar just with playing music. It's like,
yes.
I'm playing with a group of guys again, and, haven't been in a band in a while, but I mean, sitting, I always play the drums and just sitting behind that kit, playing, like hearing the guitars and the bass and having it all come together. I'm 16 again. Like there's something that happens when you're wired for something and you've been doing it as far back as you can remember. And you started skating when you were like
12. Yes. Between 7th and 8th grade. When I was 17, I went pro.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So within a couple of years, I was already, I got sponsored pretty quick. I won my first contest probably a year after I was skating. Yeah, a little after a year. It was something I picked up really quickly, but to me it was also something that I knew that I loved doing, but it was something like also knew that wasn't easy. Yeah. And so to me that I love a challenge, since I've been a kid, I love a challenge. I always challenge myself. Like even school, like math and science were just, to me, I'm like, this is easy. Like seriously, like, I'm just like, honestly, dude, check this out. When I was a kid, I'd say between 4th and 5th mainly, I would go to the library after school and read a book on every president. Like I would just read, because I liked reading. I'm like, oh, this is easy. I would go to Radio Shack and like read through instructions and just be like, learn how to wire a radio. You know what I mean? I'm like 9 years old. Like,
wow.
because I just like to read. You know, like my mom bought me a computer, thick ass book. And like, I just did the program overnight.
And you were hungry for that information, right?
I was just hungry for that information. So I think that really folded over with skateboarding. I found something like that I really loved, that was challenging. And it was a never ending challenge. I think that was I think that's the beauty of skateboarding, is the era that I grew up in. It was a never ending challenge. You had so much cool stuff. You had, you're just seeing people skate pools and then backyard ramps. And these ramps are just, dude, these ramps have like milk crate platforms. Like, you're just like, dude, this is great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a challenge. Like, I'm getting up to that milk crate today. And then from there it went to street, and it was just really cool. Like, that particular era is so special and important, not only to myself, to a lot of people. And going back to the podcast, I think that's what generally grabs everyone about that. And I know my demographic, you can kind of see it in things that, the posts and things like those people generally know. They're just like, oh, hell yeah. Like they remember that stuff. Yeah. Like, just like how, like, like you're a kid, like whoever got you into playing drums, and it's the same thing with skating, it's a very familiar thing. And being able to tap into that demographic is very important to me. And I think it's important for those guys to know that it's special. It's just as special to me, a fan, like, oh, like you're spending, like, no, dude, I think this is special.
Yeah.
Like that, like, forget about me. Like this is what's cool to me. Like, and that's the beauty of doing a podcast, man. Yeah. Is being able to lock into things that you love to do. And, I've loved skating since I was a kid. And that era of skating, that 88 to 92, 93 is just, man, like I can't explain it to the average person because it doesn't make sense. It's like,
well, that was a transformational time too, right?
It was like, not only just so many cultures were clashing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, because you got to think, like, I'm 48, so in that mid 80s, like MTV and BET were completely separate. There was no like, oh, you catch some waves. They were night and day, dude. Like, you know what I mean? And so there was like American culture and there was like Black culture. You know what I mean? And so it was those were really hitting head on, with like Aerosmith and Run DMC, the Beastie Boys, and you're starting to see all this stuff, and like you're a kid, and so everyone rode a skate, everyone rode a bike, everyone had a mongoose, it's like everyone, you know what I mean? Everyone had a gooseneck, like everyone remembers that time and era because it was so many cool cultures clashing, and it wasn't forced, it was like things were really cool and people had no idea. They weren't like trying to be cool. Like people had no idea. Guns N' Roses were a bunch of junkies. You know what I mean?
It was authentic, right?
It was so authentic, from the music to skateboarding to, there wasn't a thing back then. You were into everything, like I remember growing up, my mother would listen to, she'd go from 38 Special to Patti LaBelle. I knew the words to Higher Love. Like, I knew who Phil Collins was before I knew who Rick James was. Wow. You know what I mean? So it was, you were slowly starting to see that. So if you grew up in that era, you were blessed, man, and to remember that and be able to talk about it and bring it to people. Yeah. It's really great to be able to do that and to remember things and be able to give something back to skating, it's given so much to me. I think it's the least I could do, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it's the least I could do.
Man, that's so cool. And to have the shorthand, it's like you're interviewing a lot of people that you knew from back in the day, and you're getting to meet some of your heroes, in which case you haven't really like talked to or spent much time talking to, and get to really know who they are, right? It's like these are people that you watched skate and you aspired to be like, so they made you better. So they were they were basically mentoring you from afar.
Yes,
even if
100%. Yeah.
That's so cool. And so you're able to give them a platform to really kind of reveal who they are and what makes them and what they're doing now. All of that stuff is so interesting to hear.
Yes.
And there's not really other places that are doing that. It's these are untold stories, right, of pro skateboarding.
And a lot of people do have these guys on, but like my buddy Talking Schmidt, he is great. Like honestly, to me, he is Johnny Carson. And I don't know if you know this little known fact. Arsenio Hall loves Johnny Carson.
Wow, I did not know
I've
that.
always loved Arsenio Hall, so it's like I have found my Johnny Carson. It kind of makes sense, and he doesn't. It's funny, he doesn't really think about it, but to me, he gets everyone. He gets the old guys who are just way too cool. You know what I mean? Like them old dudes who are still pissed. Like probably I'm a street skater and I went pro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I understand it's cool. You know what I mean? Some people probably thought Fender would never make a better guitar in 1978. Things move on.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So but I know he gets those guys, man. He gets the Salbas and the guys who I'm like, dude, I want to talk to Salba. You know what I mean? I don't know what I talked to him about, but I just think it'd be cool and he has that. So that to me, it's he's someone I kind of look up to from afar, and there's some other guys, these guys that do this Bones Brigade one. They're really awesome. What they do, they kind of dissect the old Bones Brigades videos and they find all these Easter eggs, but then they get all these dudes who worked on them. And cause those things are made like movies.
Yeah.
Stacey Peralta was there. So they get all these dudes oh, we have the gaffer. And I'm like, where did you find this dude? You know what I mean? They have some weird piece of paper and they're like, oh, you remember this thing from Police Academy? And I'm like, dude. So that kind of stuff, I feel like that's really awesome, but interview-wise and content-wise, I'm very proud of what I've stacked up so far. It's only going to keep getting better. It's gotten better every season. Sound's gotten better. The guests, I wouldn't say the guests are better. I look at them all, not all equally. There's been some guys I'm like, dude, I can't believe I got this guy. Like Ray Barbie's a guy I'm like, God, cannot, dude. I met Ray Barbie last September. They all flew us to Tupelo, Mississippi for a thing, and my buddy called me. I was working for a nonprofit called Super Skate Posse. They fly me out to be their chef. I've been doing that for the last couple of years. Shout out to them. And my buddy Chris calls me. He's like, I got the best birthday gift for you in the world. He's like, you and Ray Barbie are going to be rooming together in Tupelo, Mississippi. Dude, I almost passed out. We've never been in common spaces. Maybe in passing, Munster contest and thing, but we've never been in the same area.
Yeah.
And so he released a board with Strangelove because Sean Clyde, he's one of the owners of them. He's one of the greatest graphic artists ever. He did some of the most classic power boards and all the old world industry stuff. He is basically Stan Lee of skateboarding. No shit. Mm-hmm. And so he redid Ray Barbie's first board for his company. And there was a huge festival out there. Ray Barbie they had a couple of his boards at the shop. And so I used my per diem, bought them right on the spot. Not even joking, dude. A couple $100, dude. It was almost $400. I'm like, dude, give me both. Signed them both. Had him and Cliver sign them both. And I was just like a kid, dude. You know what I mean? And so I had a manager there with me at the time, and we were dropping him off. Everyone's getting dropped off at the airport, and we were and Ray's getting out, and she's like, "Go ask him right now." And I was like, "It's like, dude." She's like, "If you don't ask him right now, you're never." She's like, "This is your chance right now." And just opened the door and was like, "Hey, man. First, I just want to say it's great to meet you." I was like, I couldn't even ask him. I was like a kid, dude. And he's 2 feet away from me. I'm just I was like, hey, man, I do this piece. Dude, I'd love to come on the podcast. I was like, did I hugged him? But I couldn't call him. So I had my manager call him and set it up. And but she set it up, man. And that was very special to me. Yeah. To me, and it happened around Christmas time last year. And that was very special to me. I used to dress like him as a kid. I wore my hat like him. And like, I just emulated this guy, you know? It was like, I can't explain it. Like it wasn't like a Kobe Jordan thing. Like I like looked like Ray Barbie as a kid. Like, you know, like I had the jeans and like I was Ray Barbie, you know what I mean? And so just talking to this guy, man. And like, it was like, I can't explain it. Like my father was never around. So it was like talking to my dad, you know, or just like talking to a grandfather. You know, it's just so awesome, man. Just like every word, like I remember every word, and just like, we were just on the phone, man. And I'm just staring at the phone the whole time, just in disbelief. Like, I can't believe Ray Barbie's on the phone. You know, it was like a 3-hour thing. He's like, we going too long? I'm like, you need 6 hours? You can talk me to sleep, dude. So that was special. Marty Grimes. Marty Grimes is very special. He's the first African-American pro skateboarder, excuse me. Mm-hmm. And he just told me his whole story. He told me about how his mother grew up with Martin Luther King, and so that's where his name came from. Martin Luther King used to come to his house, hang out when he was a kid, and lived in Atlanta. And dude, he was just telling me all these crazies. And I was just like, and you know, these guys don't really interview with a lot of people. Ray Barbie, that was, you know, no, he doesn't do podcasts. He doesn't do skateboard podcasts. He hasn't done like 9 Club, and them guys probably like, how the fuck did you get this guy? You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of guys that like that's great. All them other guys do that, but they don't do this, you know? So I take a lot of pride in that, you know? I take a lot of pride in the people that I have. And I got some guys coming on this season, and, you know, the guys are like, man, you know, I just thought I was kind of a flash in the pan. And I'm always telling these guys, like, look, dude, like, you inspired me, and, you know, you guys have no idea. Back then, you know, say 1989, 1990, 6 months was 3 years. Yeah. You know, as far as anyone's concerned, if you were alive back then, 6 months was 3 years of anyone's life. Like 6 months was a long time, you know? So a lot of those guys, you know, they were around for year and a half, maybe 2 years, and kind of went into the early 90s, but not as strong. And to me, I'm just like, man, you were around when it mattered, though. You know, it's like almost like being a group on Sub Pop back then. You know, like, check this out. My buddies from Jacksonville were one of the first groups on Sub Pop. Their name was Rain Sanction. Look them up.
I remember them.
Remember Rain Sanction? Yeah. That's insane.
They were great.
All right, so that's, dude, I know those guys, dude. The one dude, Brandon, he's chased me at 7-Eleven when I was 10 years old and poured a big gulp on my bike. And I hated them forever. Like, I'm not even joking. They were like the older skate punk dudes. They were like them dudes in like, on The Simpsons. You know, them dudes who wear the beanie. That was them dudes. That was them dudes. Yeah, it was Brandon. It was Brandon's brother. I forgot his brother's name, but they were on Rain Sanction before. Man, they was like 88, 89. This is before Nirvana. Yeah. You know, so, you know, a lot of this, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're like, so I have a lot of guys like that. You know, like a lot of guys from the GNS video. You know, I don't know if you remember GNS skateboards. Totally. Yeah. Late 80s.
It's Gordon and Smith, right?
Gordon and Smith, yes. Gordon Smith was a part of Vision Skateboards. A lot of people don't know this. So GNS, when they broke up, GNS in 1990 was unstoppable. There was probably 8th Street and GNS that ran skateboard. Powell was out of the way. Like Powell was still around, but they were just like, they were like Vanilla Ice around. You know what I'm saying? Like they were around, but they didn't really matter. So GNS and 8th Street were like, that too was on top of the street, you know, until New Deal in mid-1991. If you're a skater, everyone remembers this. So GNS broke up and started Alien Workshop. So a lot of people don't know this. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I got a lot of guys from the GNS video. They did 2 or 3 videos. Guy from here, actually, Shannon May. I don't know if you know who Shannon May is.
That name sounds
familiar. He's from here in Orlando, Florida. Wow. But he moved. He lives in Louisiana now. One of the great skateboarders, super great skateboarder from back then, and grew up skating around here, Fashion Square, all that. I mean, Levitt's curbs. Like I grew up skating that kind of stuff too here back in the day. So like I got a couple of guys from the GNS video. And one of the guys like, man, you know, it's a flash in the pan. I'm like, look, dude, like, trust me, like, people are going to trip out when I'm like, dude, look who I found, you know, like, cause it's not like you found them, cause they pop up in my comments, dude. And I'm like, oh, you're here? Oh my God. It's like seeing someone in the audience. I'm like, oh, you're here? Oh, you're coming on. So I just DM them, Day One Song is coming on. And me and Daywan were teammates back in mid-90s. You imagine me, Daywan, and Rodney Mullen like in a van. Like no one could, you know what I mean? It's like that was like us and like LeVar, like a little kid. Is all these random people on tour. And so, I've known Daywan forever. And, I asked him to come on. He's like, yeah. So a lot of people are like, how do you get these guys? And I'm like, number one, I know them.
Yeah.
Like they're my friends. And number two, I think it took a while to make people really not notice it, but be like, whoa, this is kind of here to, like he's like not, this isn't like a fly by night thing. Because a lot of people have tried to do podcasts. A lot of skateboarders have tried to do them.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get like 10 or 12 under your belt, especially if you have some people and you're like, but it's just me, man.
Yeah.
It's just me, dude. I do all the social media stuff. I edit all those videos on there. I do all the editing for the podcast. I do everything.
Yeah.
And I take a lot of pride in it, man. It's sort of like cooking and, doing the market. Although I've missed it the last 2 weeks, I love doing the market. I take pride and it's my thing. To touch on that really quick, this happened today. I think it's really cool to make food and see people's eyes light up. It's a genuine thing. It's like, you don't know what's going on with people. You don't know anything, but if that can bring them a little sense of joy, like that does me so well. It's like it makes me know everything's not all right, but everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like it really does. And if something simple as food can really, just open a genuine smile from someone and, and that's a really warming thing. And food is a great communicator. And that's why I take a lot of pride in it. And, it's just like podcast or communicating with people. And I used to do it drunk a lot, and so I don't think I took a lot of pride but I clearly was on autopilot, because I don't remember these things.
There's something to connecting with people and being present in the moment and like legitimately there. Yeah. It's so cool to see those things are becoming bigger parts of your life and really important in ways of sharing and ways of connecting. And yeah, man, like, and your food's great too. So it's cool to have you in Audubon Park, especially just like of all places. I know Tito lives in the neighborhood, Tito Parada.
Yes.
And I've known Tito since high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was in my brother's grade. And so they skated together. And so Tito is building skate parks around Florida and other places, flying all over, which is such a cool thing. And that was how you two connected. Is that right?
Yeah, I was probably one of the 2 or 3 black people in Jacksonville that rode a skateboard, and most of the guys when I was growing up, 86, ramps and stuff were really big. So I say that to say that my mom couldn't afford a ramp. She couldn't afford that kind of stuff. And I didn't live near people that had that kind of stuff. And so there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me or people that were not rich or didn't know rich people that had ramps and parents that would let them people, so when street skating came around, I started kind of traveling around a bit, going to contests, and I forgot where I met Dwayne at. Dwayne Robinson was from here. He lived in Winter Park, and we became really good friends because we were kind of the 2 black guys that skated, and, he was sponsored, I was sponsored. He was on Santa Cruz at the time, and he was a little ahead of me at the time, but he also looked like Ray Barbie, but I always looked up to Dwayne, and I would always come down here and skate Altamont and stuff. And I think that's where Tito came around, was around Dwayne. I knew him mainly from Dwayne, to say that. I knew another guy. I don't know if you knew Simon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Simon, when I lived in Gainesville, I kicked it with Simon too in like 95.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we probably know a lot of the same people.
Yeah. Like my brother was in Gainesville too.
Bobby Sinclair is from here. Or who else? There was a lot of people, man. There was an indoor skateboard park here back in the day too. Mm-hmm. Rampage. Sound familiar? Sound familiar?
Rampage, totally, yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. I remember that, dude. That's crazy.
I haven't thought about that place.
That is crazy. I remember that place. Yeah, dude, Rampage. And then we'd also come down and skate.
Badlands.
That was Dan and those guys. So that was early 90s. I was just looking at some photos of Badlands. I got a photo, I think I got it on my phone somewhere, of me skating Badlands. The little spine ramp in the middle. Yeah, man, I had a lot of friends down here, and that's where I knew Tito from. He'd always be at the contest too, Vassal contest back in the day, and we come here and skate downtown. And didn't Charles Barkley throw some guy through a window downtown here? See, I remember this stuff, dude. See, I remember this stuff. That's so
Orlando
crazy,
history.
dude. That's so crazy, huh? That was downtown, right? Oh, you're gonna have like some quantum leap flashback in like 20 minutes,
right? Yeah, we're going. These are deep cuts, right?
Dude, these are super deep, right? This is like late 80s, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's wild.
Dang. Levitt's Curbs. I remember we skate Levitt's Curbs. I never got to skate Fashion Square when I came down. What was that pizza place? Fazoli's or something like that? Does that sound familiar? Not really. They had the breadsticks and stuff like that.
Yeah, unlimited breadsticks.
Yeah, all right, cool. See, I remember this stuff, dude.
Yeah. Actually, it's coming back. There's going to be one like right near Audubon Park on Colonial and Bennett, where Boston Market used to be. So Fazoli's is coming back.
Be
full circle.
Market.
Yeah, man.
Remember Boston Market was unstoppable and like
it was great. Yeah,
it's so crazy.
Yeah, it's like
man.
that like place in time where these specific things, just like if you weren't there, you don't really have the appreciation for it necessarily, but a lot of us were, and a lot of us are like connected by it, and it's so cool to uncover those things. It's like, oh yeah, we like hung out at some of the same spots. Like we probably ran into each other and just didn't realize it. Yeah,
I'm sure we did. I'm sure I probably had on some big loud yellow jacket or something. You're probably like, who's that loud skate dude? And like, yeah. We probably ran it like I'd always, I was always a Florida guy, growing up. I didn't really like go to Cali until I went to Cali, came back like 92, 93. And, I filmed a lot of my first video parts in Jacksonville and in Florida. Mm-hmm. A good buddy of mine, John Montesi, he turned pro like 1990, 1991. And he filmed a lot of his parts back here in Florida. And so, always, these are guys I looked up to, guys I grew up with. They're still some of my good friends to this day. I go down and hang out with John and his family, go down there and cook for him, and owns a couple shops down there, and it's, I've always thought that was important to have Florida be part of whatever I'm doing. I'm very proud of where I'm from. A lot of people didn't come up from where I'm from. A lot of my friends did. A couple of guys came out of there, Jacksonville. Buck Smith is an older guy. But at one time this is crazy. I just thought about this the other day. Kane Gale went pro first. I think he went pro 92, 93. And then I went pro around late 93, 94. Mm-hmm. And then Neil Mims went pro, I want to say around 96, 97. And then Mike Peterson. The Kane, myself, and Neil, all back to back to back, all out of Jacksonville. We all got our first pro model through companies with Rodney Mullen.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and we were just talking about this because we were all interviewing, and I was just like, dude, that's crazy to think that. Like we were kind of like...
It's that Florida connection, right?
But he didn't know us. He didn't know that we all knew each other or anything. It was just that we all ended up like getting... Which is insane. Like you see all these guys now, like, I just got my board shaped by Paul Schmidt, which is cool, but it's like, bitch, I got my board shaped by Rodney Mullen. I mean, I don't care. Like, I want my shit shaped by the dude that rides it. You know what I'm saying? Like the dude that can ride this shit like I can ride it. I don't want it shaped by some dude that knows how to shape skateboards. That doesn't take anything away from him.
Yeah. I
trust the guy. Would you trust the guy that drives the car that sells you a tire or the guy that sells you a tire?
Right.
It's like some weird, cool little things, out of Florida and Jacksonville in itself, and just skateboarding, man. Mm-hmm. That's why I do the podcast, man. I think it's cool to uncover a lot of things and also share information. Mm-hmm. This information is important.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
especially
Back when you were coming up, like skate shops, like that was a place to learn, and watching skate videos and just how important that was, and skate magazines. And your journalism background contributes greatly to the podcast format, and people understanding and kind of trusting your voice as far as what you're going to capture, that information. Like you have this background and this hunger for information that's always been there, right? It's like, that's such a key. Yeah.
Being able to verbally describe something is very important to me.
Yeah.
You know, but I also wanted to keep it to a point to where I didn't have to rely on these, you know, YouTube and things like that to, you know, like, I was very stubborn. I'm just like, dude, there's a way you can do this. And everyone's like, dude, so many people told me, all right, dude. Good. You know, like literally just brush me off. All right, man. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, you know how much advice I took? None of it. Because all them dudes are probably wishing they were doing what I'm doing now. You know what I mean? Like here I am 50 something deep, and it's just being stubborn and knowing what I wanted and not just, you know, not sacrificing for mediocrity just to be there. You know, I thought that was, to me, that's very important. And also to not sell myself short. I haven't made any money from it. And I'm trying to figure out ways to do the Patreon and things like that. But I'm just one of those people. I hate suckers. You know what I mean? There's already so many people like capitalizing off skateboarding and making money off skateboarding that haven't really done shit for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're not really got nothing to give back. They're not really, you know, not out there getting their hands. It's like, I'm not a who you know type guy. You know, if that was the case, you know, this thing could have been everywhere by now. You know, I don't want a corporate sponsor. You know, it's like everyone loved this guy, Jeff Grosso. He was kept it real. And I'm like, dude, he worked for Vans. Vans is owned by Vanity Fair. There's nothing keeping it fucking real about working. You know what I'm saying? Like he had you guys figured out. Like you guys are, man, that's our guy. That's our guy. In the meantime, this guy's cashing a check from Vanity Fair. Now, if you point that out, you're a hater.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, get what I mean? So it's like, but let me do something like that. Oh man, he's just getting money from Vans. It's like, I don't even want to do that. And then also I didn't want to, I've gotten so many opportunities through Spotify. You know, you can sell ads and it show you how much money I make. I'm sure I could be making tons of money by now. You know, I think I'm over 100,000. Probably, I haven't even checked it in a while. And so
it's not about that, right?
It's not about that, dude. It's and then if I was going to do it, it would at least be with something I'm proud of. You know, like it's not just a check. You know, it's helping both of us. It's something like I use. It's something that I believe in.
Yeah.
And it's something that I would talk to people about, whether it was an advertiser or not. You know, so I've thought about the Mushroom King guy. I like his product.
He's amazing.
I love his product. I think he's
just so even keel, just like the nicest.
Just a Florida dude.
Just a Florida dude. Like, he's
you know
the guy.
What I mean? Just a Florida dude. Like,
yeah.
Like you can't even explain it. He's just like someone I grew up with in 7th and 8th grade that was like, we were buddies on the bus.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure we were buddies in some past life.
Right.
I really like his product, you know, so he's one of the first guys I talked to. Like, I don't want Manscaped, dude. Like,
if we could just barter for everything, I would love that. Like money changes things so much, and it's nice to have the ability to do something like this and not seek anything in exchange for it, because it does change things when money gets involved, and there's a purity to just having a labor of love. It's like, I do this because I believe in it. I do this because I want to elevate the people that are on it. Like those stories are important to me. Capturing this, I know you have kind of an intention, maybe at some point doing like a book and taking some of what has been talked about in the podcasts and putting that. And now with like, there's like AI platforms that can transcribe and do like an amazing job at crazy. Transcribing. Yeah. And I'm so glad, because I was feeling very daunted by the idea of like going back and transcribing podcasts, like typing it out. I'm like, this is going to make me hate podcasting. I can't do that. So I've transcribed the 40 episodes that I've put out.
Okay. Wow.
And
you did it that quick?
I did it that quick. Yeah. In a month's time, because I took basically a month off of, after season 2.
Okay.
And I took that time to transcribe, and it was a lot. I mean, even just like fine tuning, because it's like 90 something % correct though. So it does so much of the work for you. So like, yeah, so that sort of thing is what's going to help along something like that. It's like you can just copy and paste and you've got a book, So we live in a very exciting time. The fact that we have this technology and these developments, and and these people are still around, because it's like,
exactly,
we're like approaching middle age, and
it's important to give people their flowers while they are alive.
Yeah,
it's very important. Like there's nothing more disgusting than people coming out and giving people all these flowers when they passed away. It's like, bitch, they were right here.
Yeah.
Whole time. Yeah. Now you want to bring them up because they passed away.
Yeah.
Like that's sad. That's very, very sad. But that's society we live in. You know what I mean? That's how we are. It's people don't generally know how to. It's cool to be mediocre at anything. It's cool to be a mediocre friend. It's cool to be a mediocre husband. It's cool to be a mediocre worker. It does
seem to be celebrated a lot.
It is. It's very, you know what I mean? It's literally, it's like, dude, it's cool to be a bare minimum boy. You know what I'm saying? Like it really is. And it's kind of sad, man. Yeah. It's really sad.
And it's kind of uncool to go the extra mile and really open up and connect with people. And like, that's what I'm hoping we get to change in doing stuff like this.
But when you do find those people, like I feel like you guys are people who I can generally talk to, and like, you guys are straight shooting people, you got, and it's cool. It's like, you don't have to weed through all the shit. You know what I mean? It's like, they're cool. They're cool. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, no reservations. They're cool. And with the other shit, you don't have time for a lot of that shit, man. We're getting older, man. Time is valuable at this point. Time has always been valuable, but at this point, this is like, this is the fucking 8th or 9th inning. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, and so I'm not trying to go out stressing out or figuring out or do these mental gymnastics on who is and who isn't I don't got time for that, dude. Mm-hmm. I don't got time for that. No. I spent a lot of time fooling myself, I can honestly say that now. I'm just like, I went to a show the other night and I was surrounded by people who I've known for a long time, and I was just irritated. Everyone's just wasted. And I'm just like, damn, this is the only thing I know of these people. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of sad.
Yeah.
It was really, it was a sad, like, realization, being 48 and just looking and just being like, I've known these people since I was like 18, and like we have nothing in common right now because I'm not drunk. You know what I mean? Like literally, like nothing in common. Like if you take me out of the equation, it really doesn't matter, because everyone here is in some fucking la-la world. They're not there to connect. They're there to disconnect, right? Exactly.
And that's sort of the distinction.
And so to me, I'm just like, I don't got time for disconnecting bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather just be sitting in the house, man, and reading a good book or finding I found some good cartoons last night, and I forgot about the Inspector on Pink Panther. Like I was watching that for hours. So there's other stuff now, man. And it's not getting old; it's just getting wiser and knowing how to use your time, because your time is very valuable. And you can take a lot of that stress from what you think is, you take a lot of shit home. You ain't sleeping good. You just got to keep that shit going, man. And so, I really value my time now, man. I do. I value my sleep.
Yeah.
I value my time at home where I'm just chilling. You know what I mean? I don't got to explain that shit to nobody. I'm chilling.
And I think like also just being young and trying to figure out who it is that you are. It's like you're out in it always, and you're connecting with people, but music has kind of always been my scene. That's like really been my thing. Like I loved skateboarding culture and the art, like the skate decks, and like, I skateboarded a bit when I was a kid, but I was so risk averse, you know. It's like I watch skateboard videos and I want them to land every trick. You know what I mean? I'm just like, when they don't, I'm like, oh my God. I have to turn this off. Like, I'm such an empath that like it hurts me to see somebody get hurt on a skateboard.
Really?
Yeah. And I realize you can't have that fear. You gotta turn that off. It's like that adrenaline's gonna go, and it's gonna carry you through whatever injury. And it's sometimes that fight or flight, right?
I mean, sometimes, man, you just black out.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
that's your response, your body, it saves you from it. Yeah.
It saves you from it, you know, because a lot of times and I don't think it's more or less adrenaline, you know, because adrenaline can put you in some stupid situations.
Oh, yeah.
And skateboarders, like, they know. They ain't stupid. You know, some of them are. You know, you can see some guys, like, break their ankle jumping off stuff and da-da-da, and that's the guy that doesn't know. You know, like, he's going purely off adrenaline, so he's not using his brain. Yeah. Going off adrenaline, skateboarding is 90% using your brain. Mm. You know, the other 10% is physical ability. Yeah. So if
there's a looseness too, right?
It's very like, looseness, but it's literally like it's a mental game. It is a mental game, like because you can see some people learn a kickflip really quickly. You know what I mean? Because they can mentally see themselves doing the kickflip, and some people just their brain isn't there. You know what I mean?
Sure. It's they can't wrap their head around the physics of it. They can't wrap their head around it,
but they know what they want it to look like. You know what I mean? So it's like that's why I say between adrenaline and using your brain, like. Some people probably think they look cool riding a skateboard and da-da-da, and they look awkward. You know, like it's a mental game, you know. So once you get to the mental aspect of number one, if the first thing when you start skating, if you already know how to fall, you are 20 steps ahead of everyone. Yeah. You know, so that means if you've been a tumbler since you were a kid, and so a lot of these guys they're not like that. You know, they haven't been jumping out of trees since they were kids. And, you know what I mean? Like
totally.
They're risk averted. Like you. They're just like, I'm not jumping off that tree. It's 6 foot tall. Like some of us have been like, some jumping off the roof, you know? And so you know how to tuck and roll off the roof and things like that. So if you take that to skateboarding when you first start and you know what it feels like to roll your ankle. So you're like, you're like, I'm not trying that. That's, but some people straight go for it because, they got the adrenaline, but they don't got the brain.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So skateboarding is literally, it's a mental game. It's like golf. I say it to everyone. It's literally like golf. It's a mental game that no matter how good you get at it, you're never going to be super good because you're never going to have the same day twice. Mm. It's just like golf. You can go to the same course 20 years in a row. You can go to the same golf. You can go to the same skate course 20 years in a row. You're not going to do that same thing doing the same every single time.
Too many variables.
Too many variables. Yeah. Like you could have new wheels. You could get a little looser in your left foot sometimes. It's always changing. So it's a mental game. It's that's why when you get a little older, some guys have just chipped out of it mentally a long time ago. Like literally, you can see it in a lot of guys. Like the guys that collect skateboards. Have you seen a guy's got more than one skateboard? Yeah. He don't skate that much. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like he's mentally out of the game, but he's like in his brain, he's still a skater. He's I got skateboards. Da, da, da. The guy that skates a lot, he mentally knows like I just need this. I just need that.
Yeah.
That's all I need. And show me a skate spot. That's it. So that's what I'm saying. It's a mental game. And once you get a little older, it's like I go skating now and people are like, man, I can't believe you can still skate. And it's like, what do you think I forgot? Like
it never leaves, right?
It never leaves. Foot placement, all that stuff. But then you also know you're smart, like I'm not riding up that thing. This isn't 1996, dude. Like I'm not doing a heel flip to fakie on a vert ramp right now. But if I wanted to, it would be on a day where it's like, all right, dude, I can probably, today's the day. Today's the day. So it's just it's more of a mental thing, man. It's just like golf. You never have the same day twice and you never perfect it ever.
Yeah.
You never perfect it. And so it's, like I said, it's a never ending challenge. It always is. So even when I go skating now, man, it's a challenge. To me, it's like, I like challenging myself. It makes my heart go crazy, because I'm just like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I just, but then I forget sometimes because, dude, check it out. I go to the park and like, I'm thinking I'm just pulling up and like, I forget, you know, like, and I'm just like, no, dude, you're a 48-year-old black dude at the skate park. You know what I mean? Like kids are staring at you, number one, like, what's this old black dude coming up with a skateboard for? And like, I'm not thinking, I'm just like, because you grab a skateboard, like, oh man, I'm a kid again.
Yeah.
So I'm walking up, I'm thinking I'm like Arnold Drummond. Instead, I look like like some super old black guy. You know, I got gray hair, and like I'm not thinking of this. But then when I start skating, people are like, what the hell? But to me, it just makes sense to me. You know, it's like if I go to the Orlando Park, the first thing I do is drop in the big bowl, and like walking over to it, people are like looking at me like there's like old guys with pads and shit, and I'm just like, this is how I warm up, dude. You know what I mean? Like even just to drop in and go side to side and catch a couple of grinds, like that is cool to me. You know, I don't feel like I'm a vet, dude. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
you've pushed yourself enough where now you can just do it and enjoy it and not try to like get those tricks that you've never done before and just get better and better.
I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that old dude on Instagram or YouTube, like, you know, you're trying to play off, you know, I see a lot of that. And I'm just like, what are you guys trying to prove? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I get it.
But that's the thing. They're trying to prove it. It's a fascinating mentality when you reach a point where you're like, I don't really have anything to prove. Like I still want to share in this experience, but like I'm not going to make it about me. You know, I'm here and I know who I am and I contribute to the scene, but like I'm not here to steal the show. You know, like that's sort of the difference from that youthful kind of ego mentality where you're like all eyes on me, I'm the best, like that. You know, there's a time and a place for that, and it's not now.
I mean, at the time, all that was going on. Yeah, it was just happening. You know, so I never really thought that. You know, I didn't really think about any of that at the time. You know, and you know, thinking back now, obviously it's a huge blessing. You know what I mean? Like not as like Rodney Mullen calls me at my mom's, you know, and hey, Kareem wants to come out, and I'd already went pro for this company called Acme in '93, but they didn't pay me or nothing, and luckily they flew me to Munster, where I met Kareem Campbell through a mutual friend, and Kareem, sure enough, had Rodney call me. I was sitting in Jacksonville, and Rodney calls my mom's, like, hey, want to fly you out? I'm just like, hell yeah. You know what I mean? I grew up like World Industries. I'm like, dude, this is the greatest day of my life. At first, like my cousin's like, some man named Rodney on the phone. Dude, the funniest thing ever, dude. There's a man named Rodney on the phone. And so I get on the phone with Rodney. Hey, it's Rodney Mullen. You know, Kareem told me you're a super good skater. We'd love to check you out. And it's like, fuck yeah, dude. So I get on the plane. I fly to LA. I take a bus from LAX to Venice, and they drop me off at just some hood. And I'm just skating around with the bag, like looking for this contest in Venice. And dude, these guys are like, what the fuck? And like, it was like dropping Master P off in like a Colors video. It's like the craziest thing ever. Like everyone's just looking at me like, what the hell is this country ass dude? And like, I'm just walking around like, hey man, we're the skateboard park. And so I find this thing and then I forgot, like we lost contact for a bit, and I ended up going to Orange County and Stan. And this is when Muska first started coming around. So him and I were skating a little bit, and then I ended up they ended up dropping me off in like right on, I think it was right in front of Extra Large, the old Beastie Boys store, clothing company. Mm-hmm. And it was somewhere in LA, dropped me off on a bus bench, and you know, I met all those guys, and then I was skating. I started hanging out with Deerdick and those guys a bit, which was really cool, you know. So Kareem would keep me at his place, you know, they'd buy me all, take care of me, man. And you know, at that time I was pretty much kind of sponsorless, but I was like, these guys were like shuffling me around, like, all right, who's gonna take him? And I'm just like, dude, I hang out with all of you. You know, I don't give a shit. You know, I'm like, I'm not going home, and I'm hanging out with Kareem and, you know, just skating, man. and they were really digging my skating. And I was meeting all these people, and Kareem and I went to Vegas, and that's where I met Ken Block, rest in peace. And he asked me, like, he caught me at some Red Man show, and he's like, "Hey man, I want to talk to you about riding for this clothing company called Dub." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm starting a shoe company too." I remember he was talking to him for a while, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I'll get back to you." And I saw Kareem, and I was like, "Yo, there's like some weird white dude with a gold tooth trying to talk." He's like, "Oh, that's my man Ken." And I was like, "You know this dude?" Like, I thought Ken was kind of corny at first. Like, I didn't know him. I was just like, "Yo, there's some white dude with a gold tooth trying to talk to me." Like, he looked like the dude from Third Base. I'm not even trying to. He looked like MC Search. And I was just like, "What?" And so Ken and I became good friends. He put me on Drawer shoes at the time, which became DC. Mm-hmm. And they put me on Dub. And then I got a call. I was standing at Deerdick's house, and one night I got a call from fucking Nodis Coppice, dude. And he wanted me to ride for 1-on-1. I never forget that day, dude. And we were playing Sega hockey. Remember that?
Genesis?
Yeah. Yeah, Sega Genesis. It's like 94.
Oh, yeah.
94, 95.
It's the golden age of video games.
Yes, golden age of video games. So it was like, there's just like a room full of like room temperature 40, bunch of sweaty skaters. This is when everyone was living like, this is when everyone thought it was cool to live like 6 roommates together.
Right.
And so.
And it was kind of cool.
It was kind of cool.
Way. Yeah.
It was, like now I would not recommend that.
No.
But because 6 people can't even get along
just
together.
Gross.
Yeah, 6 people can't get along together on Facebook. So, so he calls one night, and I was like, "This is Nodis. Meet me tomorrow at Pacific Drive." He's like, "All right, man, it's just goofy Nodis." And it's so funny I'm talking about it, like, because I know him. It's fucking weird. You know what I mean? Like, these are guys I idolized growing up. And so next morning, Deerdick wakes me up like 8:30. He's like, "You ready to go?" And I'm just, "Really?" Like, fuck it, let's go. Skate around the corner, and I remember we parked at the Burger King. He's like, "I'm gonna get something to eat." He's like, "Go ahead and skate over there." Skate around the corner, and I was like, "Holy shit, dude. Like, it's fucking Nodis Coppice." You know what I mean? I was just like, I seriously almost started crying, dude. I was just like, he introduced himself, introduced Scott Gino. Jason Dill wasn't there at the time, and Dave Swift, and actually it's Dave Swift, and it was both the editor and the head photographer from Transworld. So this shit was a big deal. You know what I mean? All right, let's go skate. And I'm just like, Pah! I've waited my whole life for this moment. You know what I mean? Went to the sun spot, and I tore that shit down.
Wow.
I was ready for it, man. And after that, he was like, "I got a check for you tomorrow, man." I went home, I fucking cried. That shit was, I'll never forget that day, dude. Yeah. Ever for the rest of my life, dude. That day changed my life. And I was ready, dude.
How old were you?
I was 20. Cause I turned 20. Yeah, I turned 21. I wasn't even 21, dude. I was, dude, so much had happened between, like I said, I went pro when I was 17, and I was already traveling around, going to contests and sponsor when I was like 15. You know what I mean? So it's crazy, man, to think back on. I just all these places I was going, and just sometimes I have no money, and I just know some people and just go there and stay out there for a while and sleep on some floors, and that's kind of where I learned how to cook. I would just go buy potatoes. That's all I could really afford is potatoes. And I just kind of rummaged through the spices and see, like, today I'm making Morocco potatoes. So, I really did all the shit that people don't want to do to get on. You know what I mean? Like and it doesn't make me any better than anyone, but that's something to be proud of, man. Like, I fucking put in actual work and got hooked up by an actual skateboarding legend. And, and to think back, I had first part and 20 Shot, which is a, skateboarding classic. I don't think about these things. You know what I mean? The video comes on, it's fucking me. I'm just like, then they made another video, and that video did even better. And I'm the first person in that video. And I don't think about this stuff. You know what I mean? It's just, it's not that it didn't matter. I don't know. I just would just keep.
But you can't like focus on it too much, right?
It's like just keep working, like I just, it was sort of like being at work, it's just like, just keep it moving, man. Like, cool. You got something cool. You got a special, cool. Like, do some other shit. It's like, that's just kind of always been, that's, I've been grateful enough to be around a lot of very talented people.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they helped a lot with my development of skateboarding and how I looked at skateboarding and how I looked at the business side of skateboarding. And, you know, it was really cool, like, to know all these guys. And a lot of these guys, you know, like, great, they're doing huge now. But that isn't part of their success isn't part of my success. You know, like, I don't see Deerdick and think like, I used to fucking live in his house. You know, me and him lived in a place like this. You know, like, he was one of the guys that I wouldn't expect him to call me. Like, we're so far disattached at this point. And, like, you know, I've spent so much time getting drunk and partying and shit that, you know, it's like I'm sure if we saw each other, we're cool, you know, but I don't want to lean on that to be, you know, like, that's kind of embarrassing. You know, you see these guys my age and, like, what do you guys are still at, like, skate parties and shit? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're still, like, trying to schmooze out with these. You guys think you look fucking cool?
You can see it from the other side now, and you're like, oh, that's maybe not the thing.
Yeah.
Like,
you know, I've always said when I was younger, I was like, dude, I don't want to be that old guy in the club. You know what I mean? With the tracksuit and, like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, and I think too, there's a component that's like the nostalgia of it, the celebration of what was, and then also not kind of moving on from there too, right? It's like, you know, you've got your own things now, like you continue to have your own things, and it isn't all skateboarding, but it includes skateboarding and it includes other aspects of skateboarding.
Yes.
So, like, that's what's fulfilling to you. So you're not seeking that externally. You're not having to you're not trying to climb that social ladder or anything like that, or get the kind of attention that others are still kind of seeking. Because it's one of those things when you're a pro skater, like, their eyes are on you, right? And like you said, like, you've had cameras on you since you were young, and so you're used to that kind of attention, but you don't crave it in the same way that maybe some other people do. So that's kind of where you land on it. I'd love to talk about the Jackass days too. Just because that's fascinating. You were in 2 of the movies and some of the episodes. How was it, you know, linking up with those guys? And
well, I've known. I just told you I knew Ken. I met Ken a long time ago. Mm-hmm. Ken and Jeff Tremaine and all those guys Jeff Tremaine is the director, or, you know, the guy behind Jackass. Him and Sean Cliver. I think I just spoke to you about Sean Cliver, the Stan Lee of skateboarding. Yeah. So, and
he did one of your boards too, right?
Yes, he did one of my
boards.
The
Calvin and Hubs.
I've done 3 Sean Cliver boards. I like everyone to know that.
Hell yeah.
3. I'm on a whole different side. I'm different.
And one from just a few years ago, right? Like, yes, very recent.
He did the Clyde and Hobbs, which is awesome.
I love that.
You know, I love that guy. He actually, really quick, I want to say this about Sean.
Yeah.
Sean, I've always thought it was very important for skateboarders. I don't know if you remember back in the day, skateboarders had something that you could reference them to. Steve Caballero had the dragon. You know, everyone had like that graphic or something. Steve Stedham had his. And so I just noticed a lot in the 90s that everything went to, you know, around the artist wise. It wasn't like, it was like series, but skateboarders never really had their own graphic. They never had nothing to identify themselves with. A lot of skaters didn't, where they fucked up at in the 90s. You know, it's just like, that's why it was easy to take these guys and spit them out and use them as guinea pigs. It's, you know, literally it was.
Yeah.
Because once they're gone, they have nothing to identify with. They can't use their old sponsor's logo. You can't. So Sean, when he did the Clyde and Hobbs thing, he also drew me a new graphic on the top of the board, and it was Clyde. It was like a Clyde Calvin character, except it was dressed like the Dalai Lama, and so he drew me a Ali Lama logo.
Nice.
Yeah, and so that kind of stuff is so valuable. You know, it's like 10, 15 years from now, if I want to put out a skateboard, it's a Sean Cliver thing.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and he gave that to me. He's not going to put it back out. You know, it's like, and so those kind of things to me, you know, I don't care about having a lot of money and like, I don't need a bunch of stuff like that. That kind of stuff to me is priceless because that's one thing I'm very happy about that I was able to take away from skateboarding, along with friendships like Sean Cliver and Jeff Tremaine and the Jackass guys, because I'd known those guys since they all worked within World Industries, which was, I told you Rodney Mullen called. And once I got in that network, Big Brother magazine came out of that thing, that whole thing. So once I was in that, yeah, see, I don't even think about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I was all over Big Brother, and that's where I started my writing thing. That's where I started writing for 1996. My first thing was from like 95 when I first got on World. They took a liking to me. They took me on tour, and I'd always been friends with them. And so when MTV came to the Flint offices, they got sold to Larry Flint around late 90s. That's when I moved to LA, and I was still working for him at the time. MTV came to him about doing the show, and I was like, nope, I'm not doing the show. I was like, Don, I'm not doing the show. I was like, Big Brother and shit like that, cool. I was like, once we get on that stage, I'm not trying to let my mom or anyone know while you guys are like sticking cars and shit up your ass. Right, you know what I'm saying? Right. Like, I was like, to us, that's funny. You know what I mean? I was
sure,
like,
yeah.
But to me, like I'm like,
that's gonna get back to my family.
I just kept it skateboarding, but I always would do stuff with them, and so I did some stuff with the show, and they, they hit me up, asked me if I want to be part of the movie, and so I said yeah, and then we did part 2 and 2.5. I guess I was in, and there's something else that just came out. Someone kept tagging me in something. I just, I thought it'd be a better idea if they went with someone like Bam, who's already doing CKY and stuff like that. And it worked out perfectly. And, I hate to use this as a joke, but looking back now, that was the best decision I ever made. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, whew, there's only a couple people that came out of that clean. Yeah. And one of them's Tremaine and the other one's Cliver, because they didn't have to do none of that shit. And so a lot of that pressure of trying to be, everyone wanted to be the star. Like, it wasn't just good enough for Knoxville to be the star. You know what I'm saying? Like, you started seeing that stuff very early on. You really did. But I already I was skating, and I was getting paid well from writing in horrible ebonics, and I was cool, so I was very comfortable in what I was doing, that Knoxville or anyone else, I don't, you just started seeing that with a lot of those guys. They just couldn't play their position. You know what I mean? Yeah. And
it's a weird arena to be competitive in too, right? Because you're trying to one up one another and like doing kind of some dangerous stuff, and like, where does it end? And you're sort of like,
they could have been good at it. They could have been just, but
just do their own thing. They're entertainers. It's,
exactly.
It's not a sport.
You hit it on the nose. Do your own thing. Yeah. You can't be a better Johnny Knoxville than Johnny Knoxville. No. Even on his worst day, because he is Johnny Knoxville. He's a star of the show. So it's like, it was just one of those things, man, where like, you could really see it. Like a lot of those guys were co-stars, and then they had their own ideas of things they wanted to do, and it's just like, dude.
Yeah. And they were getting money kind of thrown at them too, right? So it was maybe much. not much money. I mean, it's not, they were, a little bit of money.
No, if you think people make money in LA,
that is a misconception.
That's the biggest misconception in the world, is that people are making money in LA. Them dudes are hurting, just like the dude that lives in Lakeland's hurting. Yeah. Everyone is hurting. It's like they're just better at bullshitting everyone with it. But, it might look like they're doing a little better, or they're going to better parties, or like they might have got it's expensive to live there, and it's expensive to bullshit people. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and so I know it. I'm not.
And
just
you got to pay to play, right? It's like you got to be
talking
there.
From experience, man. Sure. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's just a bunch of bullshit. You see people around here going broke for less. Yeah. So imagine doing that shit twice out there, and like, even guys like, like Knoxville and those guys, they make good money, but they were smart enough they already bought the house and shit like that. You know what I mean? They got financial people, and they got people in place. So everyone that's trying to play catch up with them dudes, or like trying to show, good luck, man. Yeah. I think, what's Steve-O doing, like comedy tours now or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think I saw that.
Yeah, so he's doing I don't know if Bam's still with them. There's some shit with Bam, man. I'll just say this. 2 years ago, I did an interview with someone from Florida, and I knew that he was in some shit. And some people from Florida wanted to kick his ass. I'll say that much. Like he slipped up and woke up at a buddy's house and was hitting on the buddy's wife, and then fought this old pro skater guy and broke his hip, and fucking no one knows the story. No one knows the story. And so everyone was looking for him, wanted to come up real bad. And I interviewed one of the guys, the guy's house he was at. And he was saying some choice things. And this is right when I started the podcast. And so I sat on it for a while, and I was like, you know what, dude, just for the sake of you and I, people are going to stick up for him. And so you're doing really well right now. You know, life is like, you're not there. I'm not going to add this shit to your life. And I don't think this is going to do nothing but just bring a lot of negativity to the pot. You know, I was just like, we'll run it back sometime. And luckily we did. But sure fucking enough, 2 years later, look at bam. I posted a video of him rapping a couple months ago. Posted just a random video. Didn't even say anything. I was just like, oh, the room looks dirty. People are fucking wanting to crucify me.
Wow.
And so I dropped little hints, and I'm just like, dude, these people are fucking corny. Oh, you're going to come down on somebody who's trying to get their shit together. And I'm just like, And one of my buddies chimed in, and I was just like, these guys have no fucking idea. You know what I mean? No fucking idea. And then a couple weeks later, he fucking threatened to kill his brother. There's some shit, right? They ended up back in rehab, and I'm just calling my buddies. I'm like, dude, if I would have let that fucking interview out, like, ain't no telling. You know what I mean? But I was like, one thing I know is I was fucking right the whole fucking time. You know what I mean? I was like, because the minute, like, people want to baby those guys, man, and that's what's very dangerous about it. It's like they look at those people like they're not people. You know, and it's like, dude,
they're idols, right? They
just like this,
the celebrity that level. They're like, you can't touch. Yeah, my perception of them is more important than the reality of them. And if you mess with my perception, we're gonna have words. Which is so wild. It's so that's so a cult. Crazy. I mean, that's a cult, right? That is a cult. That's dude. What that is. A cult will not hold their leader accountable. Right. And he has a cult. Yep. He has a fucking cult. There's a lot of skateboarders that do that. You know, it's like there's a lot of and it's funny because when you say that kind of stuff, you know, it's like I come off as a hater or something. It's like I don't really care what you think of me. You know, it's like I'd probably say something that's honest about people that you look up to, and people probably say things about me. You know, that's absolutely fine. Are they true? I'll let you know. But other than that, it's like that doesn't take away from these things being true about people that you clearly don't know much about, you know, and it's impossible to have kind of honest conversations about those kind of things and those kinds of people without hurting people's feelings. You know, it's just, that's there's no reality in it though, right? There's no like repercussions, and that's like always been sort of the hazard of celebrity is like people feeling like they can just get away with whatever, or it's gonna make a good story later, so I'm just gonna go ahead and be the worst version of me. And like, you know, it's so weird. It's just like this disconnect of like, you know, I don't have to follow any of these rules. These rules don't apply to me anymore. Yes. And nobody's going to come after me for breaking these rules. So like, how far can I take it?
There's a lot of that in skateboarding, you know, and you know, and that's just being honest. That's one of the dangers of skateboarding, you know, that, you know, a lot of kids should know that like,
it's always been a very like counterculture, rebellious scene, right? Like that's been a part of it forever.
But it's also been very conscience heavy. The whole being conscious and the whole, I wouldn't say the roots of skateboarding, but it kind of is. You know, it kind of is on the edgy, the counterculture of things. You know, it's the counterculture of pop culture, of surf culture, and you know, of suburban culture. It's the opposite of it, you know. So when you see those things mesh and like people will overlook the reality of like a lot of skaters dying from drugs. You know what I mean? It's like they don't want to. It's like talking about drugs taboo. You know what I mean? It's like no, it's not. There's people dying, and you guys are like rest in peace. Da 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 da. And it's like, dude, why don't you talk about the fucking problem? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like why don't you talk about people not doing drugs? Why don't you guys like quit showing people fucked up at parties and contests and shit? Like that's probably a good start. You know what I mean? Because kids are sitting in fucking Iowa and they're just like, man, I'll be fucked up. Like, oh, I'm like, go skate the bowl with the beer in my hand. It's like, dude, you can fucking die like that.
Yeah.
Like, literally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can smack your fucking head drunk and like you can do it sober too, but it's like, why even put yourself at the risk of it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you see it and it's like no one's accountable for that kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and that's not, and that to me is more damaging than anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the visualization of seeing like shit that no one's held accountable for. You know, like it's just like, yo, like this isn't, there's no one like, yo, that shit ain't cool. You know what I mean? Like, yo, man, that shit ain't cool at all. Like, yeah, there's room for it, but why?
Yeah. Well, and like you said, there's nobody telling them that it's not cool, right? And it is sort of that making a spectacle of yourself that people are drawn to sometimes as well. They're just kind of like, well, we'll just see how deep this gets, you know? There's no guidance. There's no like...
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of kind of what the skateboarding community, it's like, so you have to kind of figure out how to self-regulate a bit, right? Because nobody else is going to do that for you. Nobody's going to say, hey man, like you got to chill out on this. This isn't, you know, you got to focus on what's important. And then somebody does lose their life because of drugs or an accident or something. And it's like, those are kind of the only guideposts that you have at that point, right?
I mean, and that's what, you know, I take a lot of pride in how the podcast and everything has been building because I haven't had to rely on any of that bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I haven't had to rely on like parties and you know what I mean? Like stupid ass collabs where you're like, why would you do that? You know what I mean? Like, because
and that's what some people think of, that skateboarding is all that, right?
Exactly.
It's like that's the scene that they're drawn to, and it's like there's just, these are real people, like these are people with real lives, and you know, some of them are parents now, and it's like it's cool hearing about that stuff too, and how they've evolved, right? Like I love that stuff. It's such a, like, we're all human and we're all figuring it out, and the things that we realize and the things that we're able to share because we are still here.
Yep.
You know, that's what's important. Like what's going to keep this going? What's going to be helpful to somebody else that I should share, right?
Yes. And that is, you know, it is really important, you know, because like I said, time is valuable, you know, so if you have the time and someone can listen to you and you're talking, it's, you know, you don't want to preach.
No.
You know, but it's, I think being objective and open and honest about just things in general, and also having the experience to know is very important. You know, you can't really know unless you're in the thick of things. You know what I mean?
Right.
And a lot of people have not been in the thick of things, and that is, I think that is very, very important, dude, to be in the thick of things and be able to talk about it. You know, like there wasn't a lot of people in my space. And the spaces I'd been in for, you know, from 93 till 2012, you know, it's a pretty long ass time, you know, and I did a lot of things and was around a lot of people, and, you know, you see and learn a lot of stuff. You know, you don't walk away bitter. Like I would never be bitter, man. I had the greatest time of my life, dude. I got to travel the world. Dude, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like the first 3
doing what you love, right?
Doing what
like,
I love.
Yeah. Being celebrated.
With the people I love, and like, you know, and just like, and to, you know, it's really cool now to, you know, to see that people were fans, and you know what I mean? Like it's awesome because I don't think I appreciated it when it was there. It was just seemed like another day to me, you know, and I just had so much hidden. I just had so much fucking childhood trauma that I was just drinking and partying and just shutting things off like that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man, it's cool to like now to be able to fully grasp things and see them and appreciate it, you know, like to be doing this now, you know, to be doing podcasts and living. I didn't never think I'd be in Orlando, you know. I randomly kind of ended up here.
Yeah.
Like,
tell me about that. How'd that work out?
I was living in Tupelo, Mississippi, first and foremost.
I've driven through there.
I'm glad you kept going.
Yeah.
I, there's some good people that live there. I will say that. There's some great people that live there, but man, I'm telling you, I do not know if they know if segregation is a thing. It is just. I'm just very glad I'm not there. I was getting very, very comfortable with a very minimum wage job, and just like fucking I'm better than that. Yeah, 100% I'm better than that. You know what I mean? I don't care. I'm better than that. I'm better than living there and fucking making like $12 an hour. Fuck that shit. You know what I mean? From what I know and the people I know and shit like that, and I just know better, man. I was raised better. And like, I don't want to be around that kind of shit. I don't want to be around where like a lot of people that look like me are just mentally beaten down. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, I remember working with this one guy, dude, and he was like dishwasher at this place. And they told me, yeah, man, I would bump you up to sous chef. They had me fucking working in the kitchen for like $12, $13 an hour. And I was just, at the time I'd moved there, I had like a couple grand saved. And so I'm just like, yeah, man, I'm about to get bumped up. That never happened. And so I was working a dishwasher, and I was just like, hey, man, how much money you work? He's like, I think he said like $850. And I was like, my dude, that's like $6 something after fuck. He's like, yeah, man, I work 2 jobs. And I was like, yo, I was like, dude, I don't know if you know this, but I will put you in my fucking van and drive you to the next state over, and the minimum wage there is like $14 an hour. And I'm sure they would love to have some good work. Like, he was there every fucking day. He would work, and I'm just like, look at it, I'm just like, dude, someone would die to have someone like, you know what I mean? Like, just a good, solid dude, man. You know what I mean? Like, good, solid dude. All you want to do is come to work and feed his kids and shit like that. And like, here it is, fucking you're taking advantage of them, and you're okay with it. Like, they know, and they know, man. And so I got out of there. I called an old chef I worked with in Virginia. I was a sous chef at a country club in Virginia, and I met my buddy Chef Mike. He lives here, and I was like, yo, man, I was like, what's up with them jobs at Disney? Because he was always like, dude, you can get a job at Disney. They pay, start you at 20. He's like, you get here, get your feet off, you get another job. So around Christmas, dude, he's like, get yourself on Indeed. I got on Indeed, wrote up my little resume, and so I got here, and my car broke down, dude.
Oh, no.
I was staying downtown. And so I had an interview lined up. I forgot where the fuck it was, but it was starting like 55. Like, I had the job and missed that interview. And then I was pretty much homeless. I was sleeping in my van at skate park some nights. I would go to my buddies, but I'd stay in his house too much. Some nights I'd just go sleep in my van, man. And I was still doing the pop-up. I was still raising money for the skate park. No one knew I was fucking homeless, dude. I was sleeping in my fucking van the whole time. And my buddy in Tampa called me. He's like, dude, come down here. I got you a job. Forgot the hotel. He's like, I start you right now. He's like, give you a salary gig. And I'm like, and I was sleeping on the side of Galactic G in my car. I swear to God, dude, I would not even make this up. Sleeping in my car. And Tito calls me. And I was like, hey, man, I'm leaving for Tampa tomorrow. Actually, I was like, I might leave tonight. I was like, you want to get up, get some lunch? He's like, yeah. And we went to Stardust. And I'd ordered a sandwich. I forgot what it was. It might have been a Grinder Man.
It's like such a good sandwich.
Yeah, dude. So I ordered like a Grinder Man. It was like, man, it's a pretty good sandwich. I remember it took fucking forever.
Yeah.
And I was just, dude, it took forever. And I was like,
Stardust style.
Yeah, dude. And I was like, this is bullshit. I was like, this sandwich is good. And then I was leaving. I saw a sign, and I was like, you know this guy? And he's like, yeah. I was like, hit him up, dude. I was like, tell him I work here. He's like, you sure you want to work here? I was like, dude, I do great in places like this.
Yeah.
I was like, honestly, this is where I excel at. Like, it's like,
it's for self-starters, right? It's like, it's not really managed. So you're just kind of,
for me, dude, it's just like, I was so sick of the corporate bullshit. I don't know. I just always do well in those kind of places. And when I first got there, it was difficult. Because I'm not part of the crew, you know what I mean? Which is fine.
Yeah.
But I'll also, from growing up, man, I knew what it's like to be the new person in a school, or in skating, the new person to be in the crew in different states. And so it's like, you ain't got a fucking new guy me, and I've been worked in so many restaurants. I was like, yeah, I ain't got a new guy me. What the fuck y'all think this is? So after a while, I guess they fucking got it. Everything started kind of evening out. You know, I started doing some specials and met you guys in the market. So everything, I got my place, you know, everything just started happening, man. And, you know, it just seemed like life was coming together, dude. And I was super stoked. You know, I was just super stoked, like out of nowhere. Just, man, I'm fucking stoked to be in. I didn't even care where it was, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but I knew I was close to my mom, and I just lived so many places in the last couple of years that it was just important to, I don't know, man. It was just, I just really felt like this was the place. You know, I finally had my own place. I didn't have a roommate or a girlfriend or none of that shit. Mm-hmm. And it took me a while to even, like, to recognize it was my place, dude. Like, I'd come home after work and I'd sit in my van, dude. Yeah. Because, you know, I just wasn't, I was fucking mentally just, you know what I mean? I was just like, I was ready to go to the 7-Eleven and eat again. Like, you know, because it's not that I'd given up, but I just found a way to survive. Yeah. You know, and I was used to being in that survival mode. Mm. And it was the first time in a very long time that I didn't have to fight. I didn't feel like I had to bring my sword to the fight. Mm. You know, I was just like, man, like, cool job and got a place and skate park up the road. And I'm just like, something bad's going to happen. Yeah, just like, not like that. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I don't know, man. It just all started making sense. So I met you guys and started doing the market. And I was like, all right, man, I'm locked in. This is fucking great. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I was just like, man, and I did the first market and I did the second market. And I was just like, I don't know, man. I've been calling my friends and I'm just like, dude, I just can't explain it. Like, this is where I'm at. This is it. You know, I was like, I've tried so many places that when I just let everything go, this worked.
This episode is brought to you in part by the Audubon Park Community Market. Join us every Monday from 5 to 8 p.m. rain or shine in the parking lot of Stardust Video and Coffee. Located at 1842 East Winter Park Road, this weekly gathering of makers, farmers, gardeners, fishmongers, ranchers, craftsmen, artisans, entrepreneurs, neighbors, and friends brings the very best of Central Florida to you every week. We do hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, please click subscribe and leave a review if you'd like. We'll see you next time.